Cider and blank. Well, if you didn't instantly fill in that blank with donuts, you probably didn't grow up in Michigan like I did. Yeah, I grew up on cider. Unfortunately, I grew out on donuts. Whether you've enjoyed cider and donuts at one of Michigan's historic cider mills, or purchased your cider and donuts at Nino's, there's just something magical about enjoying them together. Cider and donuts are every bit as fall as the colors, the smell of burning leaves, football, and a cool, brisk breeze. Generally, cider donuts are known by bakers as cake donuts versus the yeast raised kind. And then specifically, cider donuts, as I like to call them, fall into two more categories, plain and cinnamon sugar, or spiced. Myself, I love cinnamon sugar, and it's an easy-peasy recipe I have for you today that you can make at home with very little difficulty. As a matter of fact, if you do any baking at all, you probably have everything you need in your fridge and pantry right now. So, let's get started with the supplies. You'll need 2 round cookie cutters, one that's 3 inches in diameter and one that's 1 inch in diameter. A saucepan to fry the donuts in. It should be about 4 to 5 inches deep and at least 6 inches in diameter, filled with vegetable or canola oil to a depth of about 2 to 3 inches. You're going to heat this oil to 350 degrees, which is about medium heat. So a candy or a deep fat thermometer is nice to also have. A rolling pin, a slotted spoon or skimmer to turn the donuts over while you're frying them, a shallow bowl filled with 1 cup granulated sugar mixed with 1 tablespoon of ground cinnamon, presuming you're making cinnamon donuts, of course. For a recipe which will make about 3 dozen 3-inch donuts, you're going to need 2 extra large eggs, 1/2 cup of granulated sugar, 2 tablespoons of brown sugar, 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract, 3 cups of all-purpose flour, 1 tablespoon of baking powder, and be sure it's fresh, 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and a 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg and cinnamon. You're also going to need 3 tablespoons of melted butter and a 1/2 cup of milk. Whole milk is fine. You can use 2% if you like. All right, let's get started. Basically, you're going to be making between a cake and a biscuit batter. And quite simply, it's going to be beaten eggs with sugar. Then you're going to fold in dry ingredients equally with milk and a little bit of melted butter. And that's it. So we're going to get started by taking 2 eggs. And I have 2 different kinds of sugar here. The granulated sugar, about a 1/2 cup. And 2 tablespoons of brown sugar. Now, if you don't have brown sugar, you don't have to worry. You can just add a couple of extra tablespoons of granulated sugar. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to mix this up. It's going to take a little bit of time, just a couple minutes, until it's very light in color. So we're going to beat these. You could use a mixing machine if you like. I typically don't dirty up a big mixing machine just for something like this. I'll just use a hand whisk like I have. And once it's smooth, you're going to add your 2 teaspoons of vanilla extract. This will also help to dissolve the sugar in here. So I'm going to beat this for a couple minutes. All right, we have our egg mixture finished. It's beaten for about 2 or 3 minutes. It's nice and silky and smooth and light. So what we're going to do now is we're going to add all of our dry ingredients together. I have my 3 cups of flour. I'm going to put in my tablespoon of baking powder, my 1/2 teaspoon of salt, and my nutmeg and cinnamon. If you don't have any nutmeg or cinnamon, you can use pumpkin pie spice if you like. So I'm going to just stir this together to kind of mix it up a bit. And the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to fold in or stir in 1/2 of this dry flour mixture with 1/2 of my milk and 1/2 of my butter. So I'm going to do that right now. It's about 1/2. Doesn't have to be perfect. Add about 1/2 the milk. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. And I'm going to add about 1/2 of the butter. And you can just use a spatula for this. The reason we add 1/2 and 1/2 is because that helps us to get the batter smoother than if I dumped all of this together and tried to mix it in one stage. So we're going to just stir this around. It'll only take a minute. There you go. You can kind of fold it a bit to get the dry ingredients to mix in with the wet. I'm smashing them down a little bit. You can see already it's pretty smooth. That's about all you really need right there. Now we're going to add the remaining dry ingredients, the remaining milk, and the last of the butter. And that's it. You don't really need a mixing machine to do this. Now, as I add this last bit of flour, you're going to see it's going to turn from kind of a batter into a dough. So I'm going to just kind of stir it and fold it a little bit. This will only take a minute or so. There we go. You can see the dry ingredients here are pretty much dissolving into the batter. Just about there already, quite honestly. Perfect. Okay, at this point, all of the dry ingredients, you don't want to mix it too much because it can get tough if you mix it too much. All of the ingredients are mixed together. I'm going to cover this with plastic wrap and put it in the refrigerator for about 30 minutes, and that'll help to relax the dough, and then I'll be ready to roll it out. So we've waited about 30 minutes, and I think our dough is ready to go. Yep, just nice and firm. The butter actually helps firm the dough up a little bit. I keep a little extra flour off to the side so that I can use it not only to have the dough rest on it, but also to help take the little guide here, dunk it in here so this doesn't stick also to the dough. So we're going to set this aside, and I'm going to put a little extra flour on top. Not much. And you can begin by patting it down. You're going to want it to be a little thinner than the width of your finger. A little thinner than a ½ an inch, let's say, maybe 3/8 if you've got a ruler. So just make sure it doesn't stick. You can see it's not sticking to the bottom of my cutting board here. And at that point in time, if you want to really smooth it out so it's nice and level, you can hit it with a rolling pin. But again, you can use your fingers for this. You don't really have to use a rolling pin. So right now, it's not stuck to the bottom, as you can see. I'm going to now cut my donuts out. So what I have is I have a 3-inch cutter and a 1-inch cutter. But you can go to the store and you can buy these little donut cutters. This one's actually kind of nice because it makes smaller donuts, so you can have like 3, and you don't even have to apologize for it. So I'm going to take the larger one to get started here. And I'm going to work towards myself here because if you cut one in the center, it's hard to grab it. So I'm going to cut it right towards the edge here. Just make a little bit of a cut like that. Now I know it's not stuck. I'm going to take my little 1-inch cutter and cut right in the center. And if you want, you can re-knead these, remix them, and make them into new donuts. Or you can just cook them as donut holes. So that's my donut right here. Now you don't want to put it in with your hand. So I suggest you get a spatula. Just lift it up. Go over to your oil and dunk it in. And we'll make a couple of more. So again, right to the edge, just twist it until you know it's released from the dough mass itself. Cut the center. Take my little spatula here so I don't hurt myself and put that in like that. And we'll do one more to get going here. Cut it, pull it away, cut the hole out, and slip it into the oil. Just like that. Now you're going to find that after about 30 seconds to a minute, they're going to float. And you're going to cook them, fry them about 2 minutes on each side until they're nice and golden brown. And I have standing by my cinnamon sugar here, which is, again, a cup of granulated sugar with a tablespoon of cinnamon. And so what we're going to do, as soon as they come out and they're fried, we're going to roll them immediately into the granulated sugar because that'll help it to stick to the donut. Okay, we've been frying these donuts about 2 minutes on each side, and they look absolutely wonderful. I'm going to just pull them out, tap them a little bit to get the grease off, and put them right into my cinnamon sugar while they're still hot. 1, I got 4 of them in here. 2, you could probably even fit another one. You could probably do 5 if you really wanted to, but 4 I think is the maximum amount of donuts you'd want to do at one time. And number 4. Okay, now since they're still hot, you can toss them a little bit if you like. That helps you get the sugar started. And then you can kind of roll them. I have a little plate here. Look at how beautiful those are. Nice and warm. Just too hot to eat right now, but in a minute they're going to be deliciously ready to eat. Just like that. And so we have our cider donuts. I have 4 delicious cinnamon sugar cider donuts, and I just can't wait to have a glass of cold cider to enjoy with them. Making cider donuts at home are not only better than some of the donuts you're going to find at the cider mill, but it's also a wonderful opportunity to share some special moments with your family. Let me know how your donuts turned out. Or perhaps you added an ingredient or two to make this recipe your very own. I'm Pete Lauren, Director of Culinary Development at Nino's. If you enjoyed this recipe and would like to see more great recipes just like it, stop by Nino's website at www.ninosalvaggio.com, where you can see what Nino's is all about. And while you're there, we hope you'll like us on Facebook or send me a tweet at Nino's Chef Pete. Fill up or fill out? Oh, I think this is a good choice.